on the struggle bus, Jerry?
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the regular meeting of the Tracy City Council at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, July 22nd, 2019. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The invocation, please remain standing or seated.
Assume a posture that's comfortable.
Okay.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in the city of Tracy, Minnesota, the spirit of wisdom and charity and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please be seated. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to do something a little bit different. I would like to do a roll call vote for everything that we do, just as a matter of accuracy. It's kind of a standard procedure for many other councils, so I think it would be a good idea. So, has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Got some spelling corrections and some questions.
Okay.
On the second page, last paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 11th line down. It's not impede, it should be impugn. The next page, middle of the page, the city council should censor, it should be censure.
Yeah, I saw that one
And
myself.
then there's another one of an impede to be impugned, closer to the bottom. And the very last page, our very last sentence is another censure instead of censor, or censor instead of censure. And then on the last page, there's some confusion in my mind as to who seconded the motion to set the 24th as the public hearing date. There was a motion and a second on the 25th. That goes into a long discussion. And then comes out, says Jerry stated that the hearing would be set for the 24th. So I don't know if that's and I listened to the tape. I couldn't find where anybody seconded on the 24th either. So.
Yeah, I
think
believe
it's second.
Councilmember Koo.
On the second time around, I know it was on the 25th, but I didn't remember hearing it on the other one. You could hear it on the 25th on the tape, but when you get to the end of it, you don't hear it when you change the date from the 25th to the 24th, because Dave had
Couldn't do
conflict, yeah.
I wanted to say,
Yeah, I believe Koo.
Okay, then it
seconded
needs
that.
to reflect that instead of just you change the date. Those are the only, I'd move approval of the minutes as amended then.
Did you get all of them?
If not, I can have mine, Diane.
Second. First and second, we'll take the vote. Councilman Sean.
oh, you want to
Roll call vote there.
Jerry?
Aye.
Who?
Aye.
Okay, Dimmers?
Aye.
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Okay, that passes the approval of the minutes. We have some changes to the agenda.
Yeah, we got two things on here, under 12B and 12C, the resolutions for approving Reiner for the contracting for the stabilization funds. It's PAP 12 and PAP 13.
I think Also, in light, we have a pretty big crowd here tonight. I think we'll move the public comment to the end, just before mayor and council communications.
Why? Exactly.
Because we got a lot of people, and
Well, the public should be heard first before we worry about department heads or city business. That was the purpose of public comment.
well, under normal circumstances, we don't have this many people here. And
I'd
this
make a
is
motion to leave the agenda as written and run with the agenda as written.
Second.
Jerry?
Is there any other discussion?
I guess I'd like to have a little discussion before the roll call. I guess I've always thought public comment should be towards the end so we can get our business done and then do the public comment portion of the meeting. I guess right now I understand the questioning because we do have a lot of people here with the public comment and everything that I'm assuming, or I'm thinking they might want to talk, maybe not, maybe they are just here to learn and observe. But I guess right now, because of the interest of finishing our business, I would want us to consider to move it into the end of the meeting.
I would also add that it would give an opportunity for the folks here, because the public comment is about things that are not on the agenda. So any questions they may have about some things may be answered before we even get to that, if we move it to the end. Any other discussion?
Let's say you have a motion and a second, so I'll
Yep.
vote on that.
A vote?
Jerry?
The motion is to keep it where it's at.
Keep the agenda as written.
Or the agenda as written.
No.
Okay. Cool?
I'll vote in favor. Aye.
Anthony?
No.
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Okay, it's 3-2. Approval of the agenda as written. Are there any conflicts of interest this evening?
Nope.
I'm not sure. Because of the whole discussion we have coming up with conflict of interest and everything, I'm leaning towards the little statement about erring on the side of caution of impropriety being viewed. And there are some invoices, because I think we've set the precedence with Dave Tiggs, that he abstains when it comes to breakthrough. I guess I'm going to say I will abstain for the Sanford invoices that are coming through on accounts payable.
Okay.
And that's for tonight's meeting, until we get better clarification. But I will do it for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the public comment. So if anyone would like to speak about an item that is not on the agenda tonight, we will open up the public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the council. The council will not respond to anything stated during public comment, but take anything said under advisement for future agendas. When you get to the podium, please state your name and your address before you speak. Mr. Moran had requested to go first.
Thank you. My name is Tom Moran. I live at 772 Harvey Street in Tracy, and I have a seat on the EDA board, and I want to address some items that are going to be coming up potentially on your Wednesday night hearing. And since I will not be in town on Wednesday, I wanted to state my case now. I read the minutes and I read the report on Mr. Salmon, and I see that I am listed as a potential witness. And because I will not be here, I want to just make a few things clear. I did meet with Mr. Salmon on June 17th, as stated in the report. Prior to that meeting, I came down to Chris's office, and Chris and I and Jeff Carpenter had a conversation about the Asian market. And the Asian market property was being packaged and rushed to the EDA board for a vote. And at that point, I don't believe we'd even had a discussion on the Asian market. So I came down to get some clarification. And I wanted to know what terms were going to be presented so that I had an understanding of what was presented before asking to vote. Jeff came to see me in that afternoon, and we discussed the Asian market. And if anybody knows Jeff, he's extremely passionate, and he stated his case very clearly that he had some concerns about how the Asian market property was being packaged for sale. I stated to him my position that I would agree to the terms that were presented to me if in fact all the due diligence was done and it protected taxpayer money. Okay? So Jeff never asked me how I was going to vote, never asked me if I would support him in any way. And those of you that know me pretty much know that nobody tells me what to do, except my wife, okay? Nobody tells me how to vote. I will vote my conscience based on the facts. And if you go through the minutes, you'll see that I've had motions to table discussions that are going nowhere until we have the facts. And when the presentation was made to the EDA board, we did not have all the facts, and I asked it to be tabled until we had budgets, estimates, had Shane come and inspect the building. That was my requirements. Nobody told me what to do. And I want to make that very clear. Jeff and I frequently disagree, vehemently, and we shake hands and we're done. And we're still friends, and if we disagree, we disagree. But he didn't tell me how to vote in any way, shape, or form. And I just wanted to make that clear. And in future with the Asian market, I will vote my conscience based on the facts given to me. So I would guess my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Jamie Matson. I live at 487 2nd Street, Tracy, Minnesota, Suite 1. I think Tony summed it up best in his quote in the paper. Now, I might not be saying the exact same words, quote for quote, but he did put it in there. That this fly-by-night came into town and acts like the city owed him something. The city did owe me something. They owed me for me to be treated like everybody else. Because I wasn't born here and I wasn't popular doesn't mean that I don't deserve the same respect that someone has lived here and is a true Tracyite. So all I say is, we live in America. We live in an area where we should be looking out for the best interests of our people, of our city, not self-interests. And I think given your long success and unsuccess in the community, you've been labeled like I have. It doesn't feel too good. Like you, the truth and everything will come out in the end. But unfortunately, just like I've told my daughters since they were 2 and 4, Courtney and Carmen, you can say words and they're just like toothpaste. You can never put it back in the tube once you squeeze it. So unfortunately, we're here for a reason that I don't think everybody agrees with. It's a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted effort, and I think we could have went down a different road of success for our city instead of smearing mud. I think we could have came out shining like rainbows and gold. So all I want to say is I love my family, I love God, and I got an amazing wife, and I thank you for everybody in Tracy, and we're looking for big and great things from our family. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kevin Strupp, attorney for Marshall, representing Jeff. I'm a little unclear what triggered all this commotion, and I suspect it's internal Tracy debates, but aside from that. So I understand the complaint. There's 3 complaints against Jeff. The concern that he violated the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that he violated the open meeting law, and apparently the generic, he doesn't like Mr. Mattson. In the order of those, Fair Credit Reporting Act, I sent Mr. Gross a memo Friday pointing out that act does not apply in this situation, and there is no violation. I presume Mr. Gross has sent that on to the City Council, as he should. I also sent him a memo Friday pointing out there's no violation of the Open Meeting Act, and I presume he sent that memo to the council, as he should. Specifically, to violate the open meeting law, you need 3 people, a quorum present at one meeting. No such thing ever occurred. There are meetings of one-on-one, meaning 2 people, never a meeting of 3. No open meeting violation whatsoever. Lastly, the generic that my client doesn't like Mr. Mattson, I guess that's a question of whether or not that's appropriate, but it's certainly not an appropriate reason to remove anybody from an EDA board. If we're going to get into that as the basis, you're going to have chaos in city government, because there's always people who don't like other people, or people who presume that they're not being liked by other people, and I don't think it behooves anybody to get into that level of personal analysis. This whole matter should be ended, and you should reconstitute and move forward without going through the hearing on Wednesday. And I understand that is before the council tonight to decide. And I would suggest that the statement by Mr. Gross and the city administrator that there was an investigation would not be accurate. An investigation constitutes talking to witnesses, gathering information, and none of which occurred. And to the extent that there was an alleged investigation, such as the statement that there's a meeting of 3 EDA members, that would be false and not appropriate to proceed to a hearing on that basis. I'd urge the council to quash this so we don't have to deal with this Wednesday. If we have to come Wednesday, we're going to spend 4 or 5 hours going through all the facts, if that's what the council desires. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
My name is Lisa Ebert Mattson. I live at 487 2nd Street in Tracy. Prior to being a roofer, I was a bill collector for 25 years. I'm very, very versed on what the Fair Credit Reporting Act is. What was done improperly. It has to be done in a very, very specific way for the purposes of what was happening. And it was not done in that way. Okay? That being said, there's many people in this room that probably don't like each other. And I don't care. You know, I don't care about politics or any of that. I don't care why. What I care about is what people do with that and how they choose to conduct themselves because of that. And there was a very pointed reason that this happened. What it is, I'm not going to speculate as to people's motives. I'm not doing it because you can't. Maybe it's because he owed us a lot of money. Maybe it's because we had a car dealership. I don't know. And I don't care. It's what happened afterwards that I care about. and the attacks made and the things said about my family. And if that's what this city is about, if that's who you want to be, I don't have anything to say about that either. But I think you should think about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll close this part of the meeting. The public comment portion is now closed. We will move on to the department head reports.
I can start that, Mayor.
Sure.
I had sent out an email before last week when I left for the week, and kind of just summarized a lot of the things that are going on here in the city of Tracy, especially with the buildings that we have here, with the amount of effort that's being put into to put people into the buildings, not only to fill the buildings up, but also to put the right people in the buildings. And that was kind of, it was more of an example than anything else to show to you what, because I sent it to a lot of people, and everybody on the board, everybody up here got that same, all the EDA board, the city council and everything else. It just shows that you send it out to enough people, you're going to, you hate to you throw it against the wall, something's going to stick. But the fact is, if you get what you're trying to do in a city out to enough people, it is going to stick. And a couple examples since then, when I was on vacation last week, is right now we have 3 cities around the area now that have adopted our $5,000 business reward, and things like that the EDA board had come up with. And so I apologize that the same email is the same thing that is in my department head report, but that's what I got for you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions or anything for Jeff? Good work on the reward program. Imitation is the highest compliment, so thank you. Who'd like to go next? Tam?
Cam from the Tracy Liquor Store. Things are going really well at the liquor store these days. We have a great team there. June 2018 sales were $55,360. This year they were $63,380. And found out just on our P&L last week that in June we had over a $20,000 profit. So we are very excited about that. A lot to do with how we buy things, and the sales are up, and our inventory is up probably 15 to 20,000. So we're very excited about that. We had a great 4th, even though it rained on Friday. Sales were over last year. I was talking with several of the other different municipal liquor stores, visited a few of them as far as our POS system goes. Trying to decide which one is better for what we need for our system and for the store. Last week, Shane, Chris, Rosemary, Dave, and I met Jeremy from Stan Morgan over at the liquor store to discuss some plans on different fixtures and that kind of thing for the store. Progress is happening over there. If you drive by on 14, you can see that the awning part is down, and my dream team's working over there. Crazy Days are coming up the 25th to the 22nd, so we plan on doing a few specials in the store for that. And as always, if anybody has any comments, suggestions, or questions, please give us a call or let me know. Thank you.
What was the Crazy Days dates again?
I'm sorry, what?
Crazy Days dates?
25 to the 27th.
Thank you. Chief Lichty?
Good evening. We'll take any questions about the activity report if anybody's got any. I have good news tonight that we have hired a new officer who will hopefully be starting late this week or early next week. So depending on
Congrats.
licensure.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Other than that, I don't have much to report.
We have a name?
Jordan Markegard.
So does that leave you with a part-time opening, or what does that
Yes.
still leave you?
Yep,
One
this
part-time?
leaves me with a part-time opening. So, once we get Jordan up and running, we'll try to do another job test and see if we can find some interest in that. So, there were a couple that were supposed to make the last job test that couldn't due to conflicts, and they're still in school, and they weren't going to be eligible to be licensed until middle of August anyway, so, but they still wanted to come test, so maybe middle of August we'll give them a shot at that part-time spot if they're interested.
Well, I'd like to thank you and Adam for picking up the slack and keeping things covered. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I know you guys have been working a lot of hours, so that is good news. Anybody got any questions or anything for the chief? Thanks.
Thanks.
Val, I see you back there.
We are having a fantastic, busy summer at the library. All the kids are keeping me out of trouble. Work is progressing in the basement. Lots of electrical done last week. Plumbing and heating guy has been there also. I think we've got some carpet picked out. And it looks like we've got a change order coming up a little bit later on the agenda. I think we've talked about it before with adding the sump pump in. Otherwise, feel free to stop by anytime and take a peek down there. It's looking good. Only other thing I want to touch on is that our final big program of the summer will be Thursday at 11. We have Climb Theater coming to do a little play for us. So, any questions?
Thank you.
All right,
Very
thank you.
Mayor, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
The hospital is in need of borrowing a radio from our department, and wondering if we can borrow that equipment to the hospital for a short period of time until they replace one that needs replacing.
We have an approximate.
Can I add, Shane, do you have any leftover at Public Works from the ones that were replaced by flood that we could?
We do.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you
I
want to
do.
give them one?
So I have one I can spare. Should probably have the council's approval to push that piece of equipment out there. It's an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, approximate time frame, maybe?
A
Any
couple
idea?
months.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and let you do that.
I think I have to abstain.
I'd second that.
I'm the one that wants it.
Okay. First and a second, any further discussion? Let's go ahead and take the vote.
I abstain.
Cool.
Aye.
And Dave,
Aye.
Tony,
All right.
and Anthony.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's it. Dale isn't here. His report was in the packet. If you have any questions, I can either relay them to him or.
Shane and you.
Aye.
So I don't know if everybody got a chance to read the report that I submitted with the packet. Got a few additions to that. We did get the street sweeper fixed, just in time to clean up after Saturday's mess. We had sent a few guys around today and pick up sticks, and then Saturday morning also from the wind we got coming through here, we had some trees crossing roads and that. Working on a hazardous building compliance. You'll probably see that in an upcoming council meetings coming up here. So we got a bad one downtown here again. We got the Greenwood siren going again. There's a corroded wire we found in that, and the batteries were past due. So that's operational. I got that going last Friday before everything hit. And then just an FYI, the airport fuel system may be down likely midweek to the end of the week. We got the levels down enough to get the floating suction repaired. So you got SUI equipment coming in to work on that so we can actually draw it to the bottom again. So other than that, we're up to 32.5 tons of asphalt, just filling potholes. We're kind of working our way around town, so in areas. So, you have any questions? All right.
Well, thank you.
Want me to
Mr.
go?
Administrator, please.
Just multiple meetings and such, as you saw in my report. I think notable things is I went to League of Minnesota Cities annual conference, got a lot of great information up there. And met and connected with a lot of other administrators and such up there, so that was great. Working with FEMA, we've gotten some funding finally from FEMA, and I actually got word today that 4 more projects are closing. We have 7 projects from last summer that are currently open, so those will be closing, and we had 4 closed today. So I haven't gotten the emails yet on them, but I should see that over the next 24 hours, and that will close upon and get us to a point. We've got another thing coming up on the agenda here later to talk about that extraordinary expense loan, and I'll get into that when we get to that. Working with HESM, we've got obviously on the disaster that we had this spring, we got to work with them and get through a bunch of that. So that's pending too. And then just working on the budget. That's kind of my big swing right now. So, any questions?
Thank you. Okay, petitions and requests for communications. The chamber request for the Minnesota lawful gambling for BCD bingo and booze wagon.
This is our annual request for the Boxcar Days festivity. It's just through the Minnesota Gambling Control Board. They have to file certain paperwork, and it's an annual requirement. So if the city approves for them to hold it, then they're able to do such.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Chamber's request for a Minnesota lawful gambling for Boxcar Day bingo and the booze wagon.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Let's take the vote.
Barry. Coop.
Aye.
Dave Teagues.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes to, request is approved. Library basement remodel change order.
So there's a couple things on this. We've got, they're recommending putting a suspended ceiling in the library, and there's actually a lot of advantages to doing that instead of a sheetrock ceiling. We've got difference in levels throughout the floor, and we'd actually have to do something to make that work. Plus the floor does flex a little bit. We could see some problems potentially in the future. There are things they can do to mitigate that, so it doesn't make sheetrock out of the option. But they're looking to put a suspended ceiling in. It also allows for, 15 years ago, nobody knew we were going to be running Cat 5 in buildings either, so who knows what's 15 years from today. So that being said, we'd be able to route things throughout the ceiling just by simply pulling panels and doing that, so that's another advantage to it. But it is different than what was in the original bid. The original bid called for sheetrock, so that would require a change order by the council to change that. They did some changes in the AC system. We got a $250 credit and a $250 bill. So that balances out. And then the other one is, we had kind of discussed this a little bit earlier, but to put a sump in that back corner, Shane and his crew actually put in like a gully behind there to divert some of the roof water that comes off. But we're still getting a little bit of residual moisture coming in there, and it seems prohibitive to fix that whole basement up and then not have a form of dehumidifying down there. So that's what's on this change order. It'd be a change order of $29.50, and it still puts us below the allotted grant and matching funds that we originally had because the price for the bid came in cheaper than where we're at originally. So on the, you know, the bid and the matching from the city through the library trust fund, I think Val's still here.
So we're actually saving money.
Well, I don't want to mislead you on that. We already have a bid
It's
set
not
where
spent at all.
we're at. We're saving money from what we thought it would be a year ago. That would be a safe assumption.
Okay.
My only question on it, and Shane, maybe you can answer it, is sump water intercept, where are you gonna deliver that water to? And
We actually have to fix that alley out here. We poured the concrete out a little ways, but we actually, that whole intersection where it goes into the parking lot,
Yep.
we're gonna take that pavement out and then re-slope it so it goes where it needs to go. And at the same time, we can go in and
That's
make
it.
a tie into that footing or the
curb
road,
drain there, yep,
the road tile.
yep. That was my question, is to make sure that we utilize that, what we paid for there.
It wouldn't handle roof water because of the size. We'd have to go all the way out to the
No, but
sewer.
just a sump, yeah.
Put a sump pump, and we could probably, you know, let it gravity some of the roof water in there, so it's not, say if it's just a trickle, it doesn't, it kind of helps with the ice
Yeah.
in the winter time and that, but, you know, it's only good until it freezes up, but that's kind of what we're looking at there for future, so.
With that being said, I'd make a motion to approve the change order for the library remodel.
I'll second it.
First and second, any further discussion?
I do have one more thing there, and Chris kind of mentioned deflection. We found that those joists, they actually kind of do this. So then your sheetrock would end up having a big wave in it. That's why they figured to just drop it. You know, it kind of, for a little bit of price difference, it would give us access, plus they're able to keep it high enough where we can still meet our ceiling height, because that was their initial plan with the sheetrock or drywall ceiling, is to keep as much headroom as possible, but it's not working with the aging building with being straight, so that was one of the other things that I just wanted to touch on, so.
Okay. So we have a first and a second. No further discussion, we'll move to vote.
Schultz,
Aye.
Tell,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Aye.
Peterson, and Dimmers.
Aye. So library remodel change order is approved. The Lift Pathways Grant Program, waiving rent.
Dave Walgar, 205 3rd Street East. The Lift Grant Aviation is a career provided free ground school flight training to the area students of 2019 and 2020 at the Tracy Municipal Airport. The school districts involved was Tracy, Slayton, Walnut Grove. Collaborated the grant to help career interest in aviation. The aviation industry suffers from a lack of commercial pilots trained. While the local program is not qualified for the commercial aviation career, we're prepared getting pilots licensed and further training for 2 to 4 years. We had 14 students sign up for complete the ground school. 7 people are flying with us right now. The first 8 have flight time are free, and ground time and the text and everything is free. One of the tools that was provided by the grant was a flight simulator. This training device allows the students to work on completed VFR and instrument flight procedures. The simulator is currently located at the high school. We'd like to move this to the office area of the Tracy Airport, as the grant is programmed for the benefit for youth and are not charged anything for simulator time. Any of the pilots who would like to schedule time on the simulator would require to pay the time instructor and supervisor. The proceeds from using the simulator would be set aside, continue funding for the youth program after the grant funds are run out in April 2020. I would like the council to approve the use of the space at the airport at no charge to the program to the youth. I've checked with Angie Home from Bullock, and the FAA has no regulations, stipulations that we can't do this. So, and I'd like to know if you approve this to put a deadbolt lock and clean the office space out. And you'll see in your packet, I think, on the back page is the flyer, and see what the sim looks like. Thank you very much.
There's space out there, Dave, for that to fit?
Yes, there is. Very much so.
Dave, what would be the city's liability for that piece of
Well,
equipment
just-
since it's in our property?
We'd have to write it up in a conditional lease that their property is their responsibility and that
And I
we're
would-
not responsible for any kind of theft or anything like that or damage.
And that would be my main concern out at the airport.
And there would be always someone in that building when someone's there.
No, I'm more
I know,
concerned
I
there is
know.
nobody there that somebody breaks in and either
Yeah.
vandalizes
We'll have
or
to stand.
steals it.
Yeah, we'll have to stand. Like the AWAS was stole too once before.
Is this simulator permanent then, or is it part of the
What's that,
grant?
Ted?
Does it go away after a couple of years? Is it like
No,
on loan, or is it permanently?
Be permanent.
Okay.
Southwest, West Central Co-op doesn't want it back at all. It's ours.
Okay.
And the money, I think they talk about for people who aren't in the program would be used to continue to fund the students to get them interested in aviation. So it's an aviation
Kind of an incentive.
incentive program, basically, just to get some youth involvement.
So I actually reached out to both the school and to the LIFT grant program just to verify and make sure, due diligence, that we don't run into any problems. The school's okay with where it ends either way. I talked to Chad Anderson. He's okay with it at school, he's okay with it at the airport. Admittedly, it would get more use at the airport, I think. I think the condition that we'd need to clarify and we need to make sure is that, one, it would cost us some money to change that space. We currently have our weather computer and other stuff in that building. Give me a second, Dave. And we'll need to divide that out, that students cannot have access to that. So that'll have to happen. And two, I think there needs to be some clarification as whether this is gonna be an FBO operation or whether this is just gonna be a school-funded thing, because an instructor needs to be present, and I don't think the city should get in the middle of the business side of that. So I think we need to have some clear clarification of whether we're letting the school have it or whether it's Tracy Aircraft there. Go ahead.
Just the school, the instructor is going to be, have to be there, but it's going to be going back to school. He'll get $25 an hour, but who's going to teach the kids?
See, he's getting that now with the grant money, right?
Excuse me?
The instructor is getting paid through that grant
Through the
money to
grant money.
provide that sim training.
Correct.
In the future, in order to keep it perpetuated, you need to collect some money from those that aren't eligible for the grant stuff in order to
Correct.
put it back for the kids.
Put it back.
And 75 of that charge would go towards the school for maintaining
Right.
the equipment and expanding the program and such.
Right.
So
And there's no problem with charging? I mean, this came via a grant?
Tom here, is he, Tom? Oh, he's actually from the LIFT.
Yeah.
program. Do you mind coming up? or-
that's fine.
So there's no conflict with it being grant money versus charging for use? Sometimes that's,
Right, as long as, if there's charge for use, as long as some funds are going back into the program to sustain it. I guess that's our main concern with granting the funds is what's the sustainability plan? Because the money is meant for kind of a one-time jump start to get things going, which they have. So now, what's the plan to generate more revenue to keep this affordable for students?
more revenue, more interest.
How long do we have grant money for? How long, at the rate it's being used today, how long do we have?
Well, you're running the flight school in the fall,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
So the money will run out by the early part of 2020, probably January or so after that first semester.
Do we have any idea what it's gonna cost us?
I'd refer to Shane on that.
Well, right now that office is being used for storage for all the fly-in, the cups, paper plates, anything left over. We use it for the next year. So really, we'd have to compartmentize the computer system and make a closet for all that stuff to sit. It can't go in a hanger because of the conditions. It's usually too wet and we're gonna have a big soggy mess, so. So that being said, you know, we'd have to pretty much compartment off that side of the room. And I guess my question for that is, how big is this simulator?
Tabletop. You see, have you got?
So what's, yeah, but that don't tell me, you know.
It's
how
a tabletop model.
Okay, so does it take up like a 4x4 or a 6x6 area? How, you know, how big of a?
How much space is required?
I've seen that, but it doesn't tell me.
There's no dimensions on it.
Yeah, how much space is required to make this operational and?
I would say 6x6.
Okay, because that room's only like 12x12, maybe even less.
Or less, I don't know, I didn't really measure it.
I would say 6x6.
6x6. You've seen it.
That'd be my concern.
Be cozy.
And then does it require internet or anything like that to operate? Because that's owned by the state and their system isn't very reliable right now, so. Those are my questions, I guess. As far as compartmentizing that, probably looking at $5,000 to move walls around. It's gonna require some electrical, moving some electrical in that too. So,
And that would provide 2 separate rooms, so we could keep our system in there and that
it'd be in
system
one
could be in
room.
there.
per se, it'd be in one room, but it would have,
Limited access to
it
the
would
other
have
half.
like a closet in that room. But, we'd have to move some lights and switches and obviously materials and stuff like that, so. As far as M&O grant money, I'm not sure where we're sitting. I know we burned all last year's up because of the snow, but, you know, that's kind of a crapshoot as far as what we have. Some years we have money left over. And
Some you don't. So the way I'm seeing it here is, we don't know what it's gonna cost or how we're gonna lay it out. We're not sure what size it is. And then we have to come up with an agreement as far as who's responsible and who's liable for it. So what I would suggest is work out your details of whatever it is for a contractor or reasonable getting along, and, you know, so everybody's covered, the city's covered, you guys are covered, and then see, you know, what it would cost and where we could find some money to do the thing. And I would say to move ahead with this, because anything that exploits that airport is an economic development tool that's just amazing.
We get pilots coming in and out of there and get some fuel, you know, that's.
Yep. Yeah, it's, the training is, if you get them when they're young, you got them hooked, and then it's a wonderful career.
I got a question, do we really need to divide that out? I mean, you just leave it alone?
But I don't, there's a matter of security. The AWITS and stuff is already secured back there. I don't know what the state driven, whatever, the closet thing, I understand that because of the climate control. I don't think it to be that big of an issue to do it, but I think it needs to be looked at and measured out, so that you don't say, doggone, now it don't fit because I was 6 inches short on this side, so.
I think we need to be versed on what the requirement is for that computer system. I admittedly am not. Shane, are you? Is that anything you have knowledge of?
Yeah, I guess as far as the security of what's there,
Yeah.
obviously it's been stolen once, so there's a security issue there, but biggest thing is pilots still need to access that, and right now it's kind of in the corner of the room. So, you know, we have to manipulate that where you can still get the space for the, you know, the simulator, but allow that access yet in the window for whether we room that off and put a closet in the corner, or, however we have to do it, but
When do you need to move the simulator? When's your
Well,
next
whatever
class?
we can do, you know.
No, when's your next classes, or your next person's coming in to use it?
We can use it any day.
Well, I realize
Yeah.
that, but you have something scheduled.
We have nothing scheduled, no. We
Okay,
got
could
people
we
that wanna
table
use
this
it.
until the next first
Well,
meeting
bring
in August?
back the
Come back with the
information, yeah.
facts?
I'll get measured, yeah.
I like the idea, and I think it's important that we look into it.
Yeah.
I agree with Councilman Peterson on this one. But we do need more details. We need to know
Sure
what
will.
we're getting into, what it's gonna cost us, where the liability is, and definitely security, since there's been an issue in the past. So I would agree that we should table this and reapproach it when we have those details.
Sure. I could get you the information.
Could you get us the floor footprint of what you have too?
Sure.
That would be helpful.
That and electrical requirements that you may have, yeah, just a standard outlet of, but
Standard
that's
outlet.
what it is, yeah. But
total room size is what would mean the most to me as far as making it fit. I mean, we have different scenarios we can do to make it fit, but, I don't wanna situate it wrong where you can get it in there and you can't slide your chair out, but, so total occupied spaces would be ideal for.
Sure, I'll measure it out.
So just to clarify for me, you said that you got some grant money that'll run through this fall. You don't have students set up for that grant
No,
money
we're
yet,
not.
or?
They're in
Is
the
that how it
process
is?
of registering students. They're in the process of
Okay.
registering students from the 4 or 5 participating.
Right, so that would
schools, yeah.
start this fall,
Well,
everything goes, okay. So the sooner we get this information back, it would be the better for them, so.
I do have instrument students that would like to use it.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
too. Thank you. I
Yep.
got the information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it.
Waiting list request for hangar loan revolving account program.
Okay, so this is part of our meeting with the FAA and MnDOT, talking about how to get hangar funding, and this is one of the options for small airports to get a hangar. This is a grant, local donation, and 80% loan portion for all of this. You can see it's divided up by site preparation. That's covered by a grant, 75%, 25% local input. And then the T-hangar building construction itself, you can get a loan for that, and at 80% and 20% local upfront. So really what it comes down to is it's a $1.3 million estimated hangar. We could get, the local share, including loan payback, is $775,000, and MnDOT would give us a grant of $525,000 to go towards it. So it's kind of one of those, you gotta put some skin in the game to get the grant from them. It is a zero interest loan over 20 years, so that's a good thing, but it is an expensive building to put up. We currently just have dilapidated facilities. It's in ill repair. It's not worth fixing the building that's there. There's not a pilot that lands a plane out there that will tell you we need a new hangar out there. The question is are we willing to enter into it this manner and take out a 20-year loan?
So, just ballpark me here, you went by it kinda, my math skills aren't what they used to be.
So simply put-
What are we looking at?
Simply put,
Our end.
finished, the hangar would cost us $1.3 million. These are just gross estimates right now, it's not anything detailed in. And if we're willing to put in 775, 480 of that being a 20-year loan, if we're willing to put that city contribution in, we can get a grant to $775,000, which, again, we would be paying out over 20 years, we would have to pay out the $480,000. And we would be responsible for $295,000 of it almost immediately, which can be used by our money that we receive. And we'll have 150 coming in next year, and we could borrow from someone else their portion of it to help cover that. That'd be the initial, and then we would have the payments moving forward.
And how many units would this be?
Let's see.
How many planes, I should say?
think this is an 8-unit. Yep. It mirrors what we already have in place. It would be built in between the AD building that's there now and the hangar that's there now. It'd be very tight as they're building it for the one hangar on the far end, but they did map it out and the plane will be able to get out, and I'm sure if we talk to that occupant, they're gonna be happy that a new T hangar is coming.
And this generates revenue as well, correct?
Well, it should pay for itself. That's the thing. And I want you to know that as we apply for this grant, we can deny it. There's a city that got the grant just this year, and we would have been potentially eligible to get that money, but we're not on the list. So that's kind of what's advanced this as part of our airport master plan. It's a commitment. Admittedly, it's a commitment from the city. So, but we can always say no as we get further. So if we don't have a plan, or if it doesn't seem like, let's say that we start losing people out of the hangars and we don't keep our occupancy up, we'll actually lose our money every year that we get, our $150,000. So, that would be something the council would weigh at that time of whether you wanted to move forward with it or not.
So what are you looking for tonight?
A motion to put ourselves, to allow us to have our engineers working on our master plan, put us onto the Minnesota DOT hangar waiting list.
Okay.
The only other question I have on this is just hangar construction and slab for the hangar, not parking ramp or taxiways?
It has to do with just the
Just
hangar
that
itself.
and the-
Anything else would be apron related, and we're putting our apron in now like in kind. So there will need to be some additional stuff that helps hook up to this apron. So, and Shane, is it 2 or 3 that we can borrow out of? It's 2, correct? From other cities? So we can borrow up to 300,000.
Yeah.
So the potential is that in 2020, we could, if we can find 2 cities that'll borrow us their 150,000, and then we'll have to, for the next 2 years prior, give that back to those cities.
Well, we have at least
could
that
potentially
owes
cover that.
us the money. I know there's.
Which we're using for the apron though.
Oh, okay.
So it's like getting an advance on your grant money.
Yes, correct. And cities do it all the time. We
Yeah.
borrow it out, and that's how we're doing our apron project now, because the apron project is 394,000, I think. So it's obviously well over the 150 that we get.
So my only other question, is there any other list for the airport that we should be getting our name on somewhere? For any
Well,
other project that we know it's gonna
we're-
be part of with the whole master plan?
It's actually part of the master plan, and in stages, we'll actually be getting on other lists. So we're on FAA's radar right now with, runway expansion, things like that. And there is hangar money from the FAA as well. The problem is that list is probably right now about 10 years out. And, the ship will have sailed by that time on this. So we currently have and actually Dave worked really hard on getting a lot of other people to commit to bringing their planes to Tracy if new hangars were built. Some of those people are willing to build private hangars, and that all comes in time with our master plan. But I feel like some of them out of there, we could possibly steer over towards building a private hangar, and we could end up with potentially 1 or 2 open units in here, which would then increase revenue as well.
So when this hangar would be built, the old one would go away?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
the plan?
Yep.
Which would make a bigger footprint for more to be
Right.
built on, and private to be
Sure.
built on, or spare hangar to be built on. So, no, I think
I think it's a good idea that we promote this, or
We
at
need a
least,
motion to,
Yeah, I would make a motion to allow us as a city to enter into the MnDOT hangar loan waiting list.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
first and second, any further discussion? Go ahead and take the vote.
Jones? Yes. Tell?
Aye.
Dave? Teags?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Waiting list. It's the waiting, to get on the waiting list is approved. The motion to get on the waiting list for FAA. Rural Service District rate.
So this is, again, you may remember this from last year, it's kind of a formality. It's currently set at 30%. 30% meets all the outlying areas and stuff, and the suggestion is that the council maintain the current rate that we have with our rural service district rate of 30%.
Oh, yeah.
Just gonna point something out. So on the map, where Core owns the property where the solar gardens are located, that whole parcel has been pulled out of the rural district. So right now it's all ag without rural district. Their hope is to, by September, put the half that is not solar gardens back into the rural district, which will lower our tax capacity in our market. They have a lot of hoops to jump through before that happens, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that currently that is not in the rural district. It was last year. This year it is not, but hopefully for 2020 they're hoping to have half of that put back into the rural district.
So we actually saw a spike this year because that was taken out of it. And it was an unbudgeted expense because we weren't aware of it until after the budget was passed. We actually got a call from E.J. Moberg late December telling us, hey, well, we got something here. So that was placed in Berkshire Hathaway, which are the rep from them that's actually talking about this, is adamant that they will be changing that. So.
Just for the ag land, not for the...
Correct. Yeah, the remaining ag land. The solar garden will stay as a light industrial, I think that one is.
Well, it's ag right now because they don't have enough kilowatts to make it commercial,
Okay.
but that's not to say it won't be in the future.
But I'd make a motion then to maintain our rural service district at 30%.
Second that.
First and second, any further discussion? Let's go to vote.
Jerry? Aye. Coop?
Aye.
Teets?
Aye.
Aye. Rural Service District rate 30% passes. Public Works additional employee requests.
I don't know if you get a chance to read the memo I had with the packet. Kind of what it boils down to is every year the state and federal agencies pass more paperwork along to us. With that, and then being short, say back 10 or so years ago, give or take a couple years, we eliminated an employee due to LGA cuts. That kind of took a toll on us, and we keep, moving forward. But we are starting to fall behind on things. I mean, obviously, you see the boulevards, the tree trimming is in dire need right now because of, there's some areas where you can get a pickup through, but it's come school bus time, it's going to be tough. And then used to be like the part-time employees, usually you could see them towards, usually back to the days they'd leave, but now a lot of them are college students, they're going to school in August, so it's tough to keep people there to, keep the grass cut and then also move on with, sewer patches and then the new jetting policy that the league wants us to do for, for claims reasons. It's just a lot for, you get two people on vacation, there isn't much left at our shop, so I just put this out to see what your thoughts are on adding another full-time employee to Public Works to perform these tasks.
So, he wants them for the work. I guess we gotta talk the funding for it because that's where we need to know where that funding would come from. We should see some FEMA dollars coming in. There are some additional dollars in there for administrative tasks and such like that. It's called Category Z, which is 5% of our gross product. So I can't even give you a solid number of what that'll be right now because we're still negotiating on some things. I can tell you this, that an estimation of what the wages would be cost-wise to the city with benefits would be around $30,000. There are some other factors and some other things that we could get it from if the FEMA portion doesn't cover it, but it would not put us in a negative situation moving into the end of the year. It's definitely a council decision because of the fact that it's a council decision regardless, but it's also something you need to weigh of it. It is an unbudgeted item, and we would have to balance it out on that moving forward.
Well, that was gonna be my question. I know you're talking FEMA dollars, that'd be a stopgap just to get them on, and then we'd have to budget it, put it in the next year's budget.
Correct.
Has anybody looked at the numbers, part-timers, pick up more part-timers and see what that costs versus a full-time employee with all the benefits? Have we looked at that and did the math to see if that would work, or, I don't.
That would work.
Any funding to anybody to work is a hard thing to do nowadays, so.
And that's the hard part is, someone wants to work, I can only work Tuesday nights, or, well, that doesn't work because you get someone working at night and they bury the mower in the mud or something, or tip over, no one's around.
No one's around, no, I understand that.
So, we need to find someone that wants to work during the day. Someone that's retired, that works fine in the winter if they're willing. It gets tough. A lot of people don't want to wake up at 2 in the morning, but it's just, it's an option, and we can advertise and see how that goes too, if that's the council's wishes. And then, obviously we can't really lose any more than we have for full-time, so if one does retire or resigns, we're gonna need to keep those people, but, if that's kind of what you're
Well, I think
thinking about trying, we can.
I think what Tony's talking
I'm
about
not
is
opposed to
comparing.
it. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it, I'm just saying, look
we
at the
can-
numbers and.
And I don't really know. We could advertise as such and see how we do.
I
Moving
think you
forward.
lose the commitment of an employee when they're volunteer like that. And maybe you'll find the perfect, I shouldn't say volunteer, I'm sorry, part-time. Snow removal's a big thing that I would worry about. Yep, okay, but I'm not doing it on Tuesday night. Well, you don't know when it's gonna snow, and we know how much, and we might not have a snow year like we did last year, but we had, the police chief was driving a plow truck this year. We have had to seek out some help. So, that being said, I'd weigh the options heavily on that, whether you want to go part-time or whether you want to go full-time. And the work is there in the summer and in the winter, so I feel that justifies part-time or full-time.
Yeah, the other thing we run into, during a snowstorm, it's happened quite a few times, is somebody gets sick to the point where they can't function.
Right.
Well, then, that makes everybody else's jobs longer than we're paying. Obviously, you've seen the overtime payouts last February, but a little unusual year, but,
Wouldn't 2 part-timers then give you an extra body for like snow emergencies, stuff like that? Wouldn't it be more beneficial to have 2 part-timers as opposed to 1?
Yeah, if we can find them,
Find them, yeah.
Okay.
I know it was my idea way back when to offer early retirement for like Gary, and you guys have been short out there since then. And then, was it, you haven't, trying to think who you've hired, but, so you're still probably 2 bodies down from where you were 10 years ago.
We thought about that, and we're not sure.
Yeah, because you got, I'd say closer to 2 than 1, but, if you need the help, and we definitely, the LGA has increased. And the reason we did it before is because the LGA took such a hit that we didn't have the money for it.
I think it was a 2008 crash was what really.
Correct.
So, as a suggestion, I would, I can't speak for the rest of the council, you got Labor Day coming up, you're gonna need all the help with tree trimming, anyway, I would advertise for right away quick part-timers, and then if you get any luck, feel them out, and then look down the road at 4 or 5 weeks and then go full-time.
I know with Keith, that's kind of a blessing to have him around in the fall, because then we got someone to tend the dump truck for the sweeper and stuff like that. And then I have, the more of the skilled, whatever department they're in, whether it's building inspections, obviously I can't tell a part-timer to go do a building
Right.
inspection, stuff like that, but, you know, it frees up that man to, you know, be able to do other things, so. But, you know, part-timers are less inexpensive, but it's just whether you can get them and, you know, the reliability of them too, so.
You know, the last one they had, that we had hired for part-time, Tim, he stuck around for quite a while before he bailed on us, but, so I don't know. I mean, I know what it's like trying to find people to work, so.
Sounds like the advantage is to try and get a couple of part-timers if we can. I think that sounds feasible where you advertise it. And then, you know, if they're working out, then you can always offer one to stay or, but
Open it as a position, full-time could turn into
part-time
part-time
could turn to full-time. Right.
And then that way, because I feel like if you just go part-time, you might limit.
You're
your
limiting
candidates
yourself
to-
on.
And you may get more
On
takers
candidates.
if they know that it could,
Test drive them.
yeah.
And then we could approach the council with the same decision later, so.
See what you get. I think that's the best way of looking at it.
I mean, my biggest thing is I need manpower. It's just-
Yep.
the days get long.
So what do we need to do here for
I
a
would just make a motion
Just,
to allow them to hire whatever number you decide, part-time help to get him through the busy season, and then make a determination moving forward. Maybe we review it in 3 months and see where those personnel are, where they fit, and if we want to retain them for either permanent or more longer part.
You were talking about 2 people then?
I mean, 2 would be, you know, without benefits, 2 would be cheaper than 1 full-time, but.
Yeah.
We can only keep them for 6 months without making them permanent, though.
Yep, no, I was
That's
aware of
in
that.
contract, which we'll renegotiate here in a couple months, or this next month, but it's still, that's how it's set now.
And it can be where I have, you know, part-time winter and part-time summer, you know? Just,
A lot of
it's-
options.
It's nice to have at least 1 for the winter. And I guess if they wanna work,
Yeah, I
you know,
think we
just when
should.
it snows, you know, I can deal with that. But if they wanna work every day, I got plenty of stuff even in the winter to do, so.
There might be people in professions that have off in the winter and would love to pick up something part-time
Yeah.
for just the winter.
And I know a lot of the contractors, they don't wanna get another job, you know, if they're laid off, because then it starts messing with unemployment.
Yep.
Well, I'd make a motion that you could advertise for up to 2 part-time employees and put it into, they could potentially work into a full-time.
I'll second.
First and second, further discussion? Go ahead and vote.
Jones?
Aye.
Tell?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Motion passes for advertising for 2 part-time additional employees for Public Works. LMC Extraordinary Expense Loan.
So as you may recall, last year during the flood, we took out a $250,000 League of Minnesota Cities extraordinary expense loan. That was to pay kind of the gap coverage on it. We had expected FEMA payments to come in long before the year term came up. That has not happened, or they're trickling in as we speak. We have to make the decision of whether we want to continue with that loan and pay payments on it at 3%, or if we want to pay the balance off of $250,000. I can assure you that the FEMA money coming in will cover that. I cannot tell you when it'll come in, because I expected it months ago, so. Our options would be to we could pull it out of our reserve account if we wanted to, cover it for now and pay it back. I would recommend that for a bookkeeping side of it, if we do pull any out of it, to pull it completely out and refund it completely when the FEMA payments arrive, just for a solid bookkeeping auditing purposes. Otherwise, the option is, I think the first payment was $55,000 due August 1st.
Can we go into the loan and then
Correct, yes.
3 months down the road, we get all the money and we just pay off what we still owe?
Yes, that is absolutely
That's
an
an
option. We can pay the loan off anytime we want. They want their money back when they
Right.
can. It was a service for us, and it's part of our insurance trust program.
Is Have we burned through all the 250 that we got from them, or is there any of that?
Yeah, oh, that was burnt up pretty quick, like.
I figured, I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, and it was, but, you know, it was nice because we didn't have to pull it out of city
Right.
coffers or anything to get to that point, so it definitely worked, and as we get reimbursed by FEMA, you know, my opinion is that we should reimburse that loan with some of the FEMA dollars when it comes up, that, you know, this for that. But, you know, that's something we can make that decision during budgeting time when we take those dollars and disperse them out.
What's our anticipated amount coming back from FEMA when everything is paid back?
I'm not comfortable saying that because I'm negotiating some very heavy dollar amounts right now on particular items. Is that fair enough? Otherwise, Per will twist it around in the paper.
So what would
What
it
the
leave
captain
us?
said was there'll be enough to pay that 250 back.
Yeah, it's,
What would
you
it,
know,
what would us leave us with reserve if we just paid it?
if we paid it,
Yeah. How hard would that hit our reserve?
we would have 1.95 left in reserve. Million. Keep in mind that includes the hospital fund as well, though.
That was my next question.
So it's about $1 million that we'd have in reserve after that.
If you're gonna make the first payment on August 1st of $50,000 like written here, where's that gonna come out of?
Well, we could take it out of the general account for now, because there's enough in the account to cover it until that, you know, a certain point. We could table it for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month. But we need to make a decision moving forward. And I do believe that I would have more answers for you from the FEMA side of it. And the FEMA funds will come in during that time to overlap it. So it's a matter of, as the FEMA money comes in, we need to sit down and have a working session and decide where that money's gonna be allocated.
So let's assume we don't see any FEMA money for 3 to 4 months. Where are we gonna pull these payments?
I would suggest again that we go to the reserve to pull them for now until we see the FEMA money.
But you've got a $50,000 payment that's due the 1st of August, or the balance due the 1st of August. Then you don't have another payment till the following year, the way I'm reading this.
Yeah.
Or the following year?
Yes.
A year.
So I mean, we potentially could cover that 55,000 with, you know, some tightening of the belt over the next 4 months.
I would make a motion that we make the first payment on the 1st of August, and
She had a question on the interest that we're receiving on our money. It's about 2.16, I think was the last one I looked at. That was the report that I got last week. And the payment on the loan is 3%.
But if we pay it off right away with the FEMA money coming in, we won't take too big of a hit on that 3%.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're asking me what, from a budgetary standpoint, what I would do, I would pay the loan payment right now and buy us some time to make a better calculated decision when we have the FEMA dollars.
I would agree with that.
and that was my motion.
Yes. We have a motion. Can we get a second on that? Do you want to restate it just so everybody knows? Because we've been going.
I'd make a motion that we pay the league the first payment on our loan, that based on the schedule they give us here, and it says the first loan payment's due on the 1st of August, for a total payment of $50,000. The next payment will be due in 2020 at 53.8, that's the 3%. So we'll pay the August 1st payment of $50,000 and take it out of the general fund for now.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Go ahead and vote.
Jerry?
Aye.
Cool?
Aye.
Tiggs?
Aye.
Anderson? Dimmers?
Aye. Motion passed to make the first payment of $50,000 out of the reserve fund, is that, or the general?
General fund.
The general fund. Okay, general fund. All right, elected official conflict of interest. Did you have,
Yes, Shane, you want to put that up there? So, as you saw in your packet, I had a reply from both League of Minnesota Cities, and again, the League of Minnesota Cities is always very standoffish about giving an opinion base. However, they did give them some information on it. And the attorney, Matt Gross, sorry, I'm going to look over your shoulder
Yes,
here.
please.
The questions that I asked, I took, some of the questions were asked multiple times throughout the meeting, but I came up with 3 general questions that were consistently asked by multiple council members. And I watched the meeting about 8 times to come up with this. So, should a council member abstain from discussion and/or voting when the agenda item includes their employer? The Tracy City Council would like clarification on friends and conflict of interest. One concern is that in a small town, the likelihood of a council member knowing someone involved in any agenda item is highly likely. And third was, if a council member refuses to abstain from discussion, how could the council move forward? And is censure an option? So again, the League of Minnesota Cities, and I'm going to put this in here just for her protection. This is from Pamela Whitmore. As my role at League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, I cannot offer legal opinions or advice. I would recommend that the questions posed below be asked of your city attorney for legal opinion. Having said that, I may be able to provide some general information that may be useful to you and the council. So what's the simple of that? The simple is she won't give an opinion. She recommends that we check with our city attorney. So on question number 1, should a council member abstain from a discussion and/or voting when the agenda item includes their employer? Pamela Whitmore's response: keep in mind, with all conflict of interest situations, the discussion what violates state law or charter is not the same discussion as public appearance of neutrality. Sometimes the effect of perception can matter more than whether a court would find the action in violation of state law or charter. If the council finds a conflict of interest and informs the council member of the finding, then the hope would be that the council member would follow that direction and abstain. Matt Gross's opinion: in contractual situations involving council members making decisions which involve their employers, it is my opinion that the council member has a direct financial interest with their employer through wages or compensation they receive from that employer, and this would constitute a conflict of interest and they should abstain. Also, it is my opinion that the council member would also have direct personal interest with their employer, and this would constitute a conflict of interest. This is based upon close business relationship that exists and the strong possibility that such judgment would impair that council member's independence of judgment. Question number 2. This was the one where both Councilmember Teagues and Jerry Schoens talked about friends. The council would like clarification on friends and conflict of interest. Again, the concern was in a small town, the likelihood of a council member knowing someone on an agenda item is highly likely. With respect to the question about friends, both the law and city's charter prohibit personal financial interest or personal financial benefit by an elected official, and are not just a friend, unless there is evidence that the friend passes on personal financial benefit to the elected official. That again is just advice from Pamela Whitmore. The attorney, Matt Gross, city attorney: the analysis above the answer to question 1 also applies to friends of council members and potential conflicts of interest. Just because a council member is a friend of someone who has an item on the agenda, that relationship does not automatically disqualify the council member from discussing and voting on that item. Again, it is factually specific on the council member's relationship with the friend and the item being voted on. Question 3. If a council member refuses to abstain from discussion, how can the council move forward? Elected officials, however, are elected with oversight by public on election day. Some councils, when faced with allegations of misconduct by fellow council member, choose to censure, which is a public acknowledgement that the council disagrees with the specific individual's behavior. Matt Gross's opinion, or answer: censure is an available remedy to address the council member's failure to abstain when the conflict of interest is present. A censure is a public reprimand or disapproval for the council member's behavior. Factors to be considered: a financial interest means any direct or indirect monetary or material benefit to a city official, to his or her spouse or dependents, or to his or her employer. Councilmember Peterson is employed by EDA board member Jeff Salmon. A direct financial connection from Councilmember Peterson and Jeff Salmon exists due to his employment wages. Councilmember Peterson is also named in the complaint against Jeff Salmon, therefore self-judgment should be considered as a disqualifying factor. Our city attorney Matt Gross has recommended that a conflict of interest is present involving Councilmember Peterson and Jeff Salmon's EDA position. Tracy City Code states that no council person, other official or employee, whether paid or unpaid, shall engage in any business or transaction and shall have financial or other personal interest, direct or indirect, which is incompatible with the proper discharge of the official duties in public interest or would tend to impair his judgment of action in the performance of his official duties. Personnel as distinguished from financial interest includes interest arising from blood or marriage, relationships, close business, or political association. So, the issue of conflict of interest has been debated in both meetings of the Tracy City Council and various boards and commissions. The Minnesota State Attorney General's Office has advised that conflict of interest law applies to any council member authorized to take part in any manner. Simply abstaining from voting is not sufficient. A failure for a council member to abstain from an agenda item could allow city council decisions to be later challenged in court. Currently, the City of Tracy recognizes Councilmember Teagues as having a conflict of interest and requires him to abstain in discussion and voting for his employer, Breakthrough Beverage. This safeguard practice is followed and acknowledged by the entire Tracy City Council by motion and passage every meeting. So, recommended action. Here's the deal. This needs to be put to bed. We need to quit being in the papers about this stuff. It just needs, and there are multiple options here. Councilmember Peterson voluntarily abstained from potential conflict of interest and declined to participate in the hearing and discussion for, Shane, can you take that off? EDA Board Member Jeff Salmon. Oh, now I lost my clicker. Can you hit the next?
You have it now?
Yep. Tracy City Council recognize a potential conflict of interest, yet allow Councilmember Peterson to participate in the hearing and discussion for EDA Board Member Jeff Salmon. The Tracy City Council recognize a potential conflict of interest and censure and suspend Councilmember Peterson from commenting or voting on any issues in reference to Jeff Salmon and his position on the EDA Board pending the outcome of the hearing scheduled July 24, 2019. Very simply put, I've had a lot of people in my office that are frankly tired of being in the paper for this kind of stuff and would like this issue resolved. I feel that the council should make a decision moving forward on this issue and stick to that decision, regardless of what it is. And I don't feel that everybody will agree, so.
They were, just a question, they were in your office about the conflict of interest discussion?
I've had multiple people in my office for multiple things, yes.
Okay, multiple is different than what you said before. What you said made me believe they were all coming there to talk about conflict of interest.
No, they've been there for multiple reasons.
So the, for lack of a better word, the elephant in the room is the charges as much as me not saying I have a conflict.
Well, regardless of what you do with the charges, this is a separate issue. Whether or not, it was heavily argued the last time, and I believe a decision needs to be made on that before you move forward with the decision on that.
I'll say this. In the court of public opinion, there is that look like there could be a conflict. A council member's position is put there by the people, and the voters decide if they want that individual to represent them in the running of the city. And so if we can agree on those two things, I can go forward here. If it's acting in the best interest of the city, there's a lot of room there, a lot of room. I personally find it repulsive when someone tells me I have a conflict without letting me explain my position, and I truly find it repulsive when someone says I cannot enter into any of the conversation about an issue because of a perceived conflict. Because that not only alienates my voice here, but it alienates the voice of the people that put me here. So we can agree that in the past, until we had the current city attorney, in the past, the adults at this table would let the rest of the adults at this table know like Jerry did tonight, I think they may have a conflict, let me back out. And that's fine, that's the way it should be done. That's the way it was done. Until somebody got on their high horse and said, this guy's got a contract, that's conflict of interest, and you're doing this, you're doing that. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, on every board, we now have, do you have a conflict of interest? I can see it on some other boards and commissions from people who haven't sat up here and had the training that we've had. I can see that. I don't agree with it, but I can see it. But to sit here and have to have someone tell you you're conflicted when, without even giving you a chance to defend yourself, that's not the right way. It just is not the right way. The voters can decide on my conflict. I sent you an email earlier, Friday, explaining that. I expected a response. I didn't get a response. That email basically offered that I would refrain from voting or making any motions on this issue if we could come to terms on how to go forward on this. Having not heard a response, I emailed you the following day at the same time saying I rescind my offer of compromise. And I don't know, did you share the email with every member of the council?
I shared portions of it. I did not forward the email directly because I felt that that could have put me in a position of violating open meeting law between you council members. I also sought the advice of the attorney on the same issue. I don't have the authority to, it's not in my position to negotiate with you on whether you.
I wasn't asking you to negotiate, I was asking you to pass the information along so I wouldn't be accused of open meeting law
Well, that needs to be done in public forum for the public, and that's, we can't.
I offered that in order to eliminate this, is my point. We've gotten to the point where we're so worried about who said what, he said where, and who's the bad guy and who's the good guy, we forgot to do the people's work and govern properly. We've gotten to the point where we take accusations and without taking time to fully vet all the information and talk to all the people and provide the entire council with the same amount of information as one council member has and make it a gotcha game of politics. And it doesn't work. That's not the way to do things. I've always believed that any problem should be solved at the lowest possible level. And that particular complaint that you acted upon should have been brought to the board that was being challenged. And then for me to find out in the Tracy paper that I was on it, that's how I found out I've been complained against. And then how come I'm not getting? You brought it up tonight that I was on there. Until I read the paper last week, I didn't know I was on there because I didn't have the information. So I'll go back to my original offer. Let's all put our big boy clothes on and big girl clothes on and act like adults and stop the finger pointing. I will, against my better judgment, restrain myself from voting or making a motion on this issue, but I will not be silenced. And if that's not good enough, I don't know what else I can do. It's up there on your board. But to tell me that I cannot participate in a discussion after I've been duly elected in an office for the third time is offensive. So it's up to you guys.
So is one of our options even, so you're willing to declare a conflict of interest?
No, by God, no, I am not. I am willing to say that I will abstain from making a motion. I will not second anything on this issue, and I will abstain from voting, but I will be heard. That's my offer.
Because if you declare a conflict of interest, you cannot be present up
That's
here
what I
for the
was told.
conversation. Is that correct?
What you can't speak during it, you can't vote during it, you can't.
There's no kind of conflict of interest. There either is or there isn't.
And in this case, there isn't.
And I believe that there is. It was spelled out fairly clearly there due to your employment by Mr. Solomon.
I can bring all kinds of legal opinions that challenge that to the core. That is why if you carefully read what they said from the league, to actually prove legally that you have a conflict of interest is almost impossible.
This is not a court of law.
I'm not saying it is.
So we're not obligated to prove legally. What we're trying to do is make a decision.
You have
of
just
what's
gone to my
best.
point about you make assumptions of people and label them before they have a chance to speak. You sat there and told me I could not
I
participate.
have the floor, sir. Please don't interrupt. I did not interrupt you. Our purpose here is to make a decision as to what's best for the city of Tracy. And whether it's actual or perceived, as has already been explained. I believe, actual or perceived, there is a conflict of interest here. So we are not obligated to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. This is not a court of law. We need to satisfy ourselves that we're doing what's right for the city. And the people that put us here as well.
That is what I said when I said the ball's in you guys' court. Without all the hyperbole.
My question, and now this is councilperson to councilperson, very respectful, like I would be to anybody. My question is not that you have a financial interest in this. I mean, I know the lawyers said that through the wages and compensation that there is that potential. But my concern is also, because you were mentioned in the same complaint, that we are getting into a bias or let me find what it's called legally. Oh, dang it. What's the word? Instead of worrying about legal.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, that you would also be possibly making a decision that could affect you as a subject matter down the road because you are also named. Now, I don't know what that legal part verbiage is.
Talking about the
self-judgment.
Yeah, something like that. Those are more of the things that are concerning to me, Tony. It's not your integrity or anything like that, but it's also the appearance to the public. Like you said when you offered out your option to, you know, not make a motion or anything, that was against your gut feeling, and not your gut feeling, but it was against what you felt was right, but you're willing to do that for the citizens of Tracy. I guess I'm wanting you to consider one step further that for the potential of the viewpoint that there is a conflict of interest, that you abstain from any of the discussion or anything.
One of Matt's recommendations, and I guess I have to read it for everybody again, the council recognizes a potential conflict of interest, yet allow the council member to participate in the hearing.
That was based on, that's actually my recommendation, and I based it on the email that you sent me. You asked me to share that with the council, and there it is. So that's why it's on there.
So you would participate in the hearing, but you would also vote?
No. I just said that here again.
Well, it
I offered
says-
it, I rescinded it, and then I offered it back tonight, that, don't silence me. Let's get this over with. But just don't silence me.
So then when it comes time for a vote, you will...
I will not make a vote, and I will not make a motion or a second. Against my better judgment, I say that here and now.
So if you can't, if such a conflict exists that you don't vote or make motions, how could you contribute then? Because,
Sort of the
like I said,
definition of compromise and conflict. My offer of compromise is not admitting there's a conflict. You decide that there's a conflict, recognize the conflict. My compromise is I will not vote.
Okay, and Tony, I appreciate the olive branch, I do. But I have to say, like I said earlier, if there is a conflict, then there is. There's no half a conflict. So if you can participate, then you would be able to vote. I mean, there's no half on this. And I'm not trying to insult your integrity. It's just that I believe there is a conflict. And if that's the case, and if I'm correct, then you can't participate in the discussion.
That's your point of view. It's up to the body here. I'll stay out of it.
Well, that is the decision we have to make tonight. So I'm to guess then that the first option, where you voluntarily abstain or recuse yourself, is
That's not a possibility.
not an option anymore.
You're down to two choices.
Okay?
I would like you to reconsider that option, Tony.
I'm sorry. I can't. For a lack of a better word, not being able to get an answer back when I asked, and when I rescinded my motion, I've changed my mind for the last time. I offer that compromise, but I can't go any farther than that. You can censure me, you can, whatever it is you choose to do, it's like I said, the ball's in your court. I've said my piece. I've made my deal. The easiest way out of all of this is for someone to stand up right now and make a motion to cancel that hearing on the 24th based on the evidence. But I don't see that happening. And that's, unfortunately, if it doesn't, it's gonna, you want to be out of the paper, it ain't gonna be me in the paper from now on.
You have free legal advice from a lawyer to do that. You guys are going to ignore that advice.
My opinion is that there is a clear conflict here, and as I've already stated, there's no halfway. It either is or it isn't.
I just think there's too much evidence, Tony, I'm sorry, when it comes to the bias and the self-judgment or whatever, because you were named in the same thing, that I don't think you cannot have a conflict of interest. I don't think any of us could. When you're being named in the same case, you're part of that case, like it or not. I guess I'll make a motion, because we have to move on. The motion will pass or it'll die. I'll make a motion that in accordance with the Tracy City Code, subdivision 5, and the City Code 2.3, subdivision 9, and yes, I looked this all up, that we censor and suspend Councilmember Tony Peterson from commenting or voting on any issues in reference to Jeff Salmon and his position on the EDA board pending the outcome of the hearing scheduled for July 24th, 2019.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
And Councilman Peterson, I'll second that, but, I just want you to consider that too, just looking at the evidence, and, I'm not gonna say that I'm a, legal lawyer where I know what's what, but just from that, I would second that motion.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Am I allowed to discuss?
Yes.
Okay. It appears to me the writing's on the wall that this is going to go to a hearing on the 24th. So if the defense attorney or Jeff's attorney asks me to testify for the defense, now what are you going to do?
I think that's up to you guys.
I don't think we can deny you that, right, Tony? I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm making the motion, because I know you are personally involved, so it would not surprise me if the lawyer would call you to testify at the hearing.
Okay.
So I think this at least takes it out of the middle as to what you do. Maybe we're making it easier for you, I don't know.
I don't have to write a letter of resignation, though.
No, you don't.
That's all my questions.
Any further
The
discussion?
Writing's on the wall.
Let's go to vote.
Jerry Schultz.
Aye.
Kutel.
Aye.
Dave Tiggs.
No.
Anthony Dimmers.
Aye. Motion passes to censure Councilman Peterson in the matter of Jeff Salmon and the EDA board position. In accordance with, help me out here, Jerry, the city code.
I can give this to you if you want. Tracy City Code. I'll just give it to you because I was looking it all up.
We'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 2019-43, approving work change order.
We took care of that, didn't we?
Yep.
Oh, that's right, we did.
But
Thank
not
you.
the Reiner ones.
Okay, so resolution 2019-44, approving Reiner contracting stabilization bonds. Pay 12 and 13, can we do them at the same time?
Sure, if you want to.
Is everybody good with that?
It's just the normal. I'd make a motion to approve 2019, 44, and 45.
First and second, any discussion?
You guys want any clarification on what those are as far as?
Yeah, I would like that.
Yep.
Number 12 was completion of the ponds, withholding 5% retainage. And then number 13 is reducing the retainage from 5% to 2%. That leaves a total of $62,000 that we still owe them. There is a punch list items that have to be completed. As of right now, the pond should be online next week. Like they're finishing one pond water balance Tuesday and then the second one on Wednesday. So if all passes, we'll be online next week. So that's what those two are for there. So.
And when do they hope to be driving away all the vehicles?
They have a dozer and a pickup left.
I was gonna say, when does this come to an end? It seems like we're looking at this just
Very
about every
soon.
meeting.
They're talking about closing, I know I talked to Jeff Van Buren today, and he talked to Chris about closing out the
Bonds for both phase 1 and phase 2. The bonds need to close by October 1st, so we'll be having a statement drafted by Ellers, and it'll come back to us, and then we'll close those bonds after final payment.
And there is some phase 1 retainage held too. There's a kind of a little dip in East Hollet that showed up. So they're actually looking and they want to replace that when they start in town for phase 3A. So they don't have to mobilize twice. It's a today at the monthly meeting, so.
Is that something that's gonna cost more? Okay.
Already done it.
Call warranty work.
Yeah, just wanna make sure.
If they don't, we have retainage for a reason.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and we had a second, correct? Okay. Should we go ahead into the vote?
Schultz. Aye. Tell.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes for, well, actually, it's a resolution passed 2019-44 and 2019-45, approving Rainer Contracting Stabilization Bond pay 12 and 13. We go to municipal accounts payable without Breakthrough Beverage.
Make a motion to approve without breakthrough in the accounts receivable.
Second.
Discussion? Go to the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. It's approved.
Make a motion to pay Breakthrough Beverage.
Second.
Discussion. Go to the vote.
Aye.
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 Dave, you need to abstain.
Oh.
Heard you, aye.
You can't do that.
An aye.
She,
Okay.
You want to
Careful,
refer
you
here if
said.
you didn't abstain from a
From the
cons.
breakthrough,
Yeah, I've written down that you were going to abstain.
I got a,
Nope.
yeah, from that first one I abstained, because I had the sample.
Not to talk you into changing your vote, but you did say earlier you were going to abstain,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Municipal accounts receivable, all right. Council and mayor communication. Anybody have anything further?
I do. I would like to make a motion in accordance with Minnesota statute 469.095 to suspend Jeff Solomon from any and all EDA meetings and activities pending the outcome of the hearing on Wednesday, because I know there is a meeting Wednesday morning, and I think with with all this going on, I think he should.
We have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Go to vote.
Jerry,
Aye.
Tal,
Aye.
Peterson,
No.
Teagues,
No.
Dimmers.
Aye. Motion to,
No. I want to do the return kind of Mr. Solomon's lawyer asking us to cancel the meeting. I want to make a motion that we request that Jeff Solomon resign from the EDA board prior to the July hearing. Just, I want to say, make this motion to avoid the negative publicity for the city, to avoid any further distractions. If he's not wanting to resign, I will say that I will listen to the evidence. We as a council will make the decision based on what is presented to us, but right now I would like to offer him to resign before that hearing is held.
Just for information, he's been asked 3 different times. He will not resign. They're going to have the hearing.
And that's fine, that's
Just-
his right.
Just trying to save you a vote.
we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go to vote.
Jones,
Aye.
Tal,
Aye.
Dimmers,
Aye.
and Teagues.
No.
Because there's been attorneys involved already, would be, I think there'd be 2 of us to have our city attorney contact his city attorney, or his attorney to ask, request that. Is that fair? Does that meet your motion?
Yeah. Then the i's are dotted, the t's are crossed.
On that note, Chris, the information that Kevin said that he provided to Matt, did you get a copy of it or not?
I don't know which information he's specifically talking to. I'd have to look back, but I can look. I've got so many emails on this, I couldn't begin to tell you yes or no on some of them.
Is there anything further under mayor and council communication? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Go to vote.
Jones,
Aye.
Tal,
Aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned.